Hey my people, this is Dr. Shivam, and as we were discussing some of the very important clinical scenario, coming to clinical scenario case 5, where you can see a patient and a health assistant giving some liquid to the patient, and in question you have been giving this picture, and there are some clinical questions by which you have to identify this test and the procedure being done. So our first question is, what is the procedure being performed in this image? Now to answer it, you have to identify what is the procedure being done and how is this image correlating with this picture. So this question is sort of new for you. This is a test called video fluoroscopy. So it is essentially a recording of modified barium swallow. So a lot of you would be thinking of it as barium swallow, but the picture or the video clip, if they provide you, it is basically a video fluoroscopy, which is to study the swallowing physiology. That means to study the oral, pharyngeal and oesophageal stages of deglutition and define the treatment strategies based upon it. So once you know where the pathology is lying by seeing this oral, pharyngeal and oesophageal stages of deglutition, you can define the treatment strategies depending upon the defect that is based or located in different phases of the deglutition, and you can target them. What it does is it allows frame by frame evaluation of the sequence of deglutition. What we do here is we give a bolus and of barium swallow, of course, and we see its movement from mouth to oesophagus. So where we can do it, we can do it in any oral motor dysfunction, any pharyngeal incoordination, nasopharyngeal reflux. And why it is so important? It is so important because it is a dynamic study. You can see how the bolus is passing and at which step of deglutition. So you all know swallowing involves, the deglutition involves different steps. So we can see at which step there is incoordination or the reflux is happening at that point and how much liquid is getting regurgitated. So based upon that, you can see how much aspiration is occurring, how much reflux is occurring, whether there is any hiatal hernia or not. So very important test, video fluoroscopy. You should not miss this one, right? So then the speech therapist can identify and improve the swallowing by different maneuvers. So this was a little relevant and important for your future examination. Coming to case 6, where you get a picture which was sort of similar to one that you got in your previous examination, but once you read the history you will get to know that this is a post-operative case and not any abscess or tonsillitis that you commonly see. So here they say a 9-year-old child has been done tonsillectomy 9 days before, and he now is presenting with bleeding from the oropharynx. So this is sort of common thing. You know that bleeding is a complication or hemorrhage is a complication of tonsillectomy. So here the patient is presenting in post-operative phase with bleeding in the oropharynx. So this is very common for ENT surgeons to get patients like this. And when we examine, we can see that there is some bleeding spots in the tonsillectomy area. So now the patient is waiting for the management as he begins to bleed again. Now let us see what the examiner wants to ask. Now the main thing that is relevant for you is what are the common surgical method to arrest bleeding, how you are going to control, and before that some relevant points like what percentage of blood loss will result or is dangerous for the child, which will result in hypotension, how you are going to estimate that child's blood volume, and how you are going to resuscitate that patient. So resuscitation is also equally important. So a blood loss of 20 to 25% would result in hypotension in that child. We estimate the total blood volume by weight, that means 80 ml per kg, and child should be resuscitated with 20 ml per kg of fluid. So this is when you are doing your emergency duty, this management you should know. Now coming to the main point, how you are going to manage that child. So there are several ways. If you can see any specific bleeding point, you can electrocauterize it or do a tying or suture ligation of that bleeding point. So you can tie that, and if it is difficult as that bed would be friable, you can also tie the anterior and posterior tonsillar pillars together. So what it will do is it will close the bleeding point when you tie both the anterior and posterior pillar, right? And at the end you have to insert a nasogastric tube. This is equally and very important so as to prevent any aspiration and other things. So you should place the nasogastric tube, and very rarely, if the things doesn't work by all the methods like this, you have to rarely ligate the external carotid artery. So this is the last attempt, and equally means simultaneously you will send some blood tests to evaluate any blood coagulopathy. So there can be any blood coagulopathy which is causing this bleeding and all. Now case number 7, right? So a 29-year-old man presents with this picture which you can see here, and numerous lesions within the oral cavity. The main thing that you need to know is these lesions are very painful, right? And the peculiar history that the patient is giving is it is recurrent and it comes and goes, means patient is having frequent episodes of these type of ulcers within the oral cavity which are very painful. So what does this image showing you, and what is the predisposing factor, and finally how you will manage this case? So I know you are getting a hint that this is a peculiar history for aphthous ulcer. Predisposing factors are hematinic deficiency, malabsorption in gastrointestinal disorders, stress, smoking cessation, trauma, drug reaction, immunodeficiencies like HIV, neutropenia, and etc. Treatment is sort of conservative, where you give, basically you say to avoid the predisposing factors, give the supportive treatment, some local anesthetic agent, corticosteroids, etc. So basically symptomatically you will give the treatment, and the recurrence is means basically is unavoidable, so you cannot do much about the recurrence. Now one more important case is this surgical picture, where you can see some surgical procedure being done in the neck and your larynx is opened, right? So means that your trachea is opened actually. Now let us see what the examiner is wanting to ask you. Now before that, I wanted to tell you that you can download our Medex app, right, where you would be getting more of similar videos, and do WhatsApp me so that I can send you the important relevant NEET PG stuffs which are very high yield and important for you to revise through the WhatsApp and the Telegram group that I have. Now what is the procedure being carried out, advantages and different advantages of the tubes. So before moving to tubes, you should identify what is the procedure. So this is a tracheostomy being done, right? Now the second is different types of tube, their advantages and disadvantages. Indication of tracheostomy, advantages compared to the endotracheal intubation in a ventilated ITU patient, at which day or before which day you should do tracheostomy in a long intubated patient, and what are the complications. So very fast, we'll just go through the important points. You need not to know every bit detailed, but yes, the important things you need to note down. So there are basically cuffed, uncuffed and cuffed adjustable flank tubes, and some metallic tubes, right? So these are different types of tube, and there are different advantages, like cuff tube prevent leaking of secretion. So if in any case you are having suspicion of aspiration, like in neurological disorders or in road traffic accident where there is a spinal cord injury, or in CVA where there is risk of aspiration, you can provide this cuff tube. During oral cavity operations like tonsillectomy and others, you have to provide this cuff tube. Why? Because it will prevent aspiration of blood into the larynx and the airway, right? And cuff pressure should be checked, because long standing tracheostomy cuffed tube might cause injury to the lumen and other complications like stenosis and all, right? Now one of the common reason, that means the indication of tracheostomy, is to bypass the upper airway obstruction. So in laryngeal carcinomas where there is obstruction, supraglottic, glottic, patient is not able to breathe, you have to do an emergency tracheostomy, right? So there are different indication. Second indication is in a long standing intubated patient, you have to replace the intubation tube, means endotracheal tube, with the tracheostomy, and when you will do it, preferred within 14 days of intubation. Why? Because it will reduce the risk of tracheal trauma with subsequent stenosis. Also, doing tracheostomy reduces the dead space in the respiratory system, which will aid in the effort of breathing and the effective ventilation that happens, right? So these are the different indication and the importance of tracheostomy. And coming to complication, starting from bleeding, any surgical procedure, the immediate complication will be bleeding, and some local damage, dislodgement, infection, tracheal necrosis, tracheoarterial fistula, dysphagia, tracheal stenosis, tracheocutaneal fistula. So there are different complications, but the most important one was to identify the procedure that was done. Now I'll end here with the for this clinical class, and would hope that you would let me know how much is this helpful to you, so that I continue making these type of stuffs whenever I get time. And do download the Medex app. There you will get a lot more free content, and stay in touch with me in WhatsApp so that I can keep sending you the relevant and important detail. And the goal is just to help you in your journey, so that somewhere I can be of help and be a part of your success journey. So this is Dr. Shivam. The season is festive, so stay happy and stay healthy.